This is Hashtag History, episode 103. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
This week, we are discussing a topic that I believe most people have at least a cursory knowledge about, but I don't know how many people know all of the details. I assume you have at least like a cursory knowledge about this.
Cursory, absolutely. I probably learned about it during, civil rights weeks, in history classes in high school and stuff, but not all the nitty-gritty details.
That was about my knowledge of it as well before doing this research.
Yeah.
So this week we are discussing the Little Rock Nine. Little Rock Nine is the name given to the 9 students that were the first Black students to attend Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, following the Brown v. Board of Education decision, which ruled that segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. When these children went to Central High for their first day of school in September of 1957, they were met by an angry mob that threw things at them, spit on them, screamed horrible things at them, and more. The Arkansas governor even called in the National Guard to block the students from being able to enter the school. It wasn't until later that month that President Dwight Eisenhower engaged federal troops to get these 9 students into the school by entering through a side door of the building to not draw the attention of the angry racist mob. We, of course, know that this was not the end of their struggles and the horrid racism that they faced and the bravery they exhibited while attending this public school. But that is what we are going to get into this week. Of course, as always, though, we have to start with a cocktail, and I am salivating. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
And this is Hashtag History,
the podcast for both history nerds and history haters alike,
where we dive into history's greatest stories of controversy, conspiracy, and corruption.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so first and foremost, we have to give a shout out to this week's cocktail sponsor, Miss Krista.
Yay!
Who bought us 3 cocktails in total.
So generous.
Krista said, quote, "Looking forward to another year of crazy history and hearing your cocktail taste buds develop. Love the show."
Thank you so much, Krista. That was so nice. She's so supportive of the podcast.
I know.
She's one of our patrons. And I saw today, too, that
she made one of our cocktails.
It was one of the ones that we did for the Chappaquiddick episode, and that one was a 10 out of 10.
Was indeed.
It was amazing. Hopefully that same luck extends to this week.
Yeah. So in regards to developing our taste buds, Krista, we hear you. We are going to try to go outside of our comfort zones a couple times this season with cocktail segments, and we thank you so much for your generous contribution to our mouths.
Thanks, Krista.
Now, we may not be going all that far out of our comfort zone today.
Okay.
You're going to have to follow some mental gymnastics here for how I landed on today's cocktail.
Okay.
Because at first glance, it doesn't really fit with the topic.
Got it.
Little Rock is in Arkansas.
True.
One of Arkansas's most commonly grown fruit is apparently blackberries.
Oh,
did not know. Little Rock. So the drink obvi needs to be on the rocks. Okay, so we got blackberry, we got rocks, we got a blackberry margarita on the rocks.
I love it. I love it. We did not go out of our comfort zones at all. This looks like, now that you've said that, it reminds me of Zocalo's, like kind of cocktail that you would get there at this, it's like a fancy Mexican restaurant here in the Sacramento area, and this is totally a cocktail that you would get there.
Yeah. Definitely. So super simple. It just contains tequila, muddled blackberries, sweet and sour mix, and then a little splash of blue curacao.
Which created this amazing color.
Yeah.
Like a super deep purple.
Yeah, and that's the reason I wanted to use the curacao. It wasn't necessary. Obviously, it's always nice to put some sort of like orange liqueur in a margarita, but it was the color that I wanted.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited.
Okay.
Cheers. It's amazing. I would say like probably 90% of the cocktails we come up with, we find online or we find from other resources, books, whatever. Leah told me this was one she had created on her own, so I already had in my mind that I couldn't give it a low rating because I didn't want to hurt her feelings. But this is easily a 10 for me. Like,
Yeah.
and
There's nothing to dislike
I'm not
about
just
it.
trying to be nice to you. This is incredible. This is so good.
And I do have to give a little shout out to a different Alex, not your Alex, Jill's Alex, our friend Jill's Alex. Who I was staying with them, visiting them up in Oregon.
Yes.
This past weekend, and I was like, oh yeah, I have to brainstorm. And he's actually a big fan of the show.
He's so supportive of the show, both him and Jill.
Yeah. And so he was like, could I like come up with some ideas for you? And so for this one, he did send me a couple ideas that he found online, but the one that stuck with me is like, you have to do something on the rocks.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you, Alex.
I love that. Thank you, Alex, for that too. Should this whole season just cocktails be put together by Alexes? Do we have any other Alexes out
Any
there?
volunteers?
Alexanders, Alexandrias, Alejandros. We'll take all of them. Did you say your rating?
Oh no, 10.
10. Okay. Stupid question.
Dumb.
The word margarita was in the title.
Exactly. That's all you need.
All right. As with every topic we cover, we have to start with some background. In 1896, the United States Supreme Court ruled with the Plessy versus Ferguson matter that separate but equal was constitutional. And by that, what they meant was that racial segregation is totally constitutional so long as the facilities for all races were indeed equal. She has a mad face, and I didn't know if it was at me or at the content.
It would never be at you, Rachel.
Even if I said your drink sucked?
Then I'd just be like, well, I guess I'm drinking it.
That's true. Like, that would be an even happier face. Like, cool, hand it over. As part of the Plessy decision reads, quote, the object of the 14th Amendment was undoubtedly to enforce the absolute equality of the two races before the law, but in the nature of things, it could not have been intended to abolish distinctions based upon color or to enforce social as distinguished from political equality or a commingling of the two races upon terms unsatisfactory to either, unquote. Although considered to be one of the worst decisions ever made, Plessy has actually still, to this day, never officially been overruled. Sure, there have been other decisions, namely the Brown v. Board of Education decision that we're going to be discussing in today's episode, that have ruled that the separate but equal doctrine is unconstitutional. But technically, Plessy has not actually been explicitly overruled. The results of the Plessy decision went into effect immediately. Public locations such as restaurants, bars, hotels, hospitals, movie theaters, telephone booths, benches, parks, restrooms, and more were all segregated. And so was, of course, one of the largest institutions of all, schools. This segregation remained in effect until 1954 with the passing of the Brown v. Board of Education decision. This case, the Brown case, arose out of a class action lawsuit against the Topeka Board of Education when several black families were forced to place their children on a bus to be sent to a segregated black school far from their homes rather than allowing them to attend the local white schools. Specific to the named plaintiff, Oliver Brown, his daughter had to walk 6 blocks just to get to a school bus, which would then take her to her segregated black school, as opposed to being able to attend the white school, which was only 7 blocks from her house. So, like, 1 block more of walking to get to the closest school to her versus 1 block less to get to the bus that would then transport her to the school she was allowed to attend.
And it's just like the exact opposite of nowadays. Like, you have to go. You have to go to a certain school, the school that's closest to you. You have to.
Yeah. Is it like that everywhere? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Maybe that's only a California, Sacramento thing because...
I don't know. But yeah, like at least here in Sacramento, for the most part, you don't get a choice about what school you go to. It's whichever one's within a certain radius of your house. In Kansas alone, there had been nearly a dozen cases for integration brought to the courts between the years 1881 and 1949. These cases represented that separate cannot possibly be equal when the black schools had lower quality buildings, out-of-date textbooks, a severe lack of supplies, and, of course, the need to take transportation to schools outside of their nearby neighborhoods.
And I would argue, like, fewer resources as far as teachers and staff.
Definitely fewer resources all the way around.
Yeah.
In research that the NAACP did for the Brown case, they found that there were only 4 elementary schools for black children in comparison to the 18 available to white children. Clearly, this is not equal. And this time, the Supreme Court agreed. Unanimously, in fact, in a 9-0 decision, the court stated that, quote, separate educational facilities are inherently unequal, unquote, and that they were in direct violation of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. In many places across the country, this decision was celebrated. Many states were already not upholding segregation within their schools. But of course, for the Deep South, this decision was catastrophic. And they did all that they could to make it as difficult as possible for Black students to integrate their white schools. In fact, there was so much pushback and so much delay that the Supreme Court issued a secondary ruling the following year, known as Brown No. 2, in which they ordered that schools integrate, quote, with all deliberate speed, unquote.
Still not very specific.
Yeah, they never are. That's why these things are debated over and over, and why we're still going through this kind of stuff to this day, is because it's too vague.
It's like they didn't say within 2 years.
Yeah, no, within a certain time frame, and here's how you're going to do it. I mean, exactly, because the Supreme Court had not specifically laid out how this integration was supposed to happen, other than that it was supposed to happen speedily.
How would you define speedily?
It depends on how do you define what is. Basically, because the Supreme Court hadn't really laid out exactly how this all was supposed to happen, it was upon each one of the schools to determine their own plan. The superintendent in Little Rock, Arkansas, Virgil Blossom, put into place a plan that would begin in September of 1957 and would start with only one school, Little Rock Central High School. And then after a few years, other schools in the area would slowly open up to a few Black students until all schools in the area were essentially desegregated by 1963.
Almost 10 years later.
Speedily.
Speedily, yes.
Vaguely speedily.
Vaguely speedy.
Yeah. And that takes us to what we are talking about today, the Little Rock Nine. So who were the Little Rock Nine? This was a name that would be used to refer to the 9 Black students that had been specifically selected by the local NAACP to be the first to integrate the formerly all-white Little Rock Central High School. Their names were Minnie Jean Brown, Elizabeth Eckford, Ernest Green, Thelma Mothershed, Melba Patillo, Gloria Ray, Terrence Roberts, Jefferson Thomas, and Carlotta Walls.
I'm going to name my child Melba because that's such a unique, interesting
Melba,
name.
Isn't that so cute? I love it. And I love Minnie
I've never
Jean.
heard that before.
The name Melba?
I don't think I have.
Oh, I love it. And when I say that each of these students had been specifically selected by the Arkansas NAACP, what I mean is that the NAACP had determined that each of these kids had the bravery and the strength to do what they knew would be a difficult task.
That was going to be my question, is what qualified them to be the first? And it's just that they were brave and...
Yeah, had the strength to withstand what everyone knew was going to be one of the largest moments in the civil rights movement.
Yeah. But
at the hands of children.
Yeah.
In fact, in the weeks leading up to the fall semester, these kids were in regular, intensive counseling sessions meant to prepare them for what was ahead.
It's
really sad. It's sad.
It's sad that children, I mean, like, I know they're in high school, but I mean, they're children.
They're kids.
They're kids. Had to get training as if they're going off to war.
Yes.
For going to school.
Yes. In my research, I got 2 different stories about the actual start date of this school term. And I always like to be really clear with our listeners when I'm not able to confirm a fact 100%.
Mm-hmm.
In some places, I read that the Little Rock Nine started the school session on September 3rd, 1957. Other sources, however, said that the students had been asked to not attend the official first day of the session and that they instead started on September 4th. If anyone has more information on that or more clarity, please send us a message and let us know. I would love to officially learn.
Yeah.
What I do know for a fact, though, is that on September 2nd, so this is either the day before the school session began or 2 days before the school session began or before the Little Rock Nine first attended, Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus made a public announcement that he had called in the Arkansas National Guard to keep the Black students from entering the school on their first day.
What? I didn't know that.
Yes.
I assumed that he called in the National Guard
to protect them. No. And of course, in his statements, he says it was for protection and safety. We knew this was going to be a really volatile situation, so it's best that they not come or that they be
kept out for their own safety.
Exactly. But I don't believe that at all.
No.
Number one, I don't believe it just because I'm a skeptical person that doesn't believe that. But also based on what we will later learn about this particular governor, we know that their safety was not his motivation.
No.
And you will see that soon. Hey everyone, we are so excited to share with you about Macy's Wine Shop. Yes, it is that Macy's. Macy's has launched their very own wine shop, which includes full-size, delicious wines curated by their experts coming from renowned wine regions, which include our home state of California and beyond. You can select exactly what type of wine you are looking for. Do you love reds? Do you love whites? Maybe a little bit of both? You can make these personalized selections quickly and easily through the Macy's Wine Shop. What makes Macy's Wine Shop better than any other online wine club is that they deliver quality wines at unmatched price points, all within 1 to 3 business days. Seriously, I ordered my wine on a Monday and had already received them by that following Wednesday. And with our link, you get $50 off a 6-bottle box of Macy's award-winning wines, which is a $95 retail value. Head to the show notes of this episode to access the discount code, or you can head to our Instagram to find the link in our bio. Cheers! On September 4th, 1957, when the Little Rock Nine reached the high school, they found themselves to be blocked from the entrance, not only by the nearly 300 members of the National Guard, but also by various segregationist groups, fellow high school students, and angry locals. Elizabeth Eckford, one of the Little Rock Nine, said of her experience that day and of the protesters, quote, "They moved closer and closer. Somebody started yelling. I tried to see a friendly face somewhere in the crowd, someone who maybe could help. I looked into the face of an old woman and it seemed a kind face, but when I looked at her again, she spat on me," unquote. One of the most awful things about Eckford's experience was that she was the only student of the 9 to have arrived at the school alone. There had been plans for them all to carpool together, but as the Eckford family did not have a phone, they were unable to reach them, and Eckford had to endure this horrendous experience on her own. So we have some pictures from that day. They're all really tragic and really awful.
Yeah, this picture is like famous.
Mm-hmm.
It's of a woman. One of the students is like in the foreground,
mm-hmm.
just minding her own business, walking
mm-hmm.
into school. And behind her is a white woman who is like hate-filled, anger-filled, screaming.
Yeah.
Like you can tell she's screaming something horrible at the student walking in.
Yes.
And you can see behind them, there's like a huge crowd of people
mm-hmm.
in the background.
Mm-hmm.
You know, countless people.
Yep.
This next one, it looks like the National Guard who are stationed outside of the school.
Yep.
And yeah, they have guns and helmets as if they're going into warfare.
Yeah.
Just seems really unnecessary against some high school children.
Yep.
So in the third picture depicts, again, the National Guard. There's a line of them on one side, and then on the other side is the 9. I'm assuming the 9 students just trying to get in, and they're being blocked.
The first picture that we talked about that we're going to post to our Instagram too, so you can see it, is like the famous picture from this incident. Yes. You don't always see those of the National Guard, and I think what you said is really important, is just seeing the number of soldiers and the type of equipment that they have and the protection that they have is like outrageous and unnecessary and ridiculous that we have nearly 300 armed National Guard to keep 9 children out of a school building.
Yep.
Because of how intense this scene was, it was broadcast on television and printed in newspapers nationwide, calling national attention to this monumental civil rights incident that was occurring in Little Rock, Arkansas. Although the school district would issue a statement saying that they did not condone the presence of the National Guard, and even though President Dwight Eisenhower had gotten involved, it still would not be until either September 23rd, 24th, or 25th, again, the research is inconsistent about dates, that the students would be able to return to the school. Under Eisenhower's direction, the National Guard was placed under federal control, and federal troops were sent to escort the 9 students into the school safely. They would enter through a side door and only remain at the school that first day for about 3 or so hours due to the threats of violence. And although the students would be protected by the 101st Airborne Division and the National Guard for the remainder of the school year, they faced a horrendous year ahead. One of the Little Rock Nine had acid thrown in her eyes. Another one of the Little Rock Nine told a story of being locked inside a bathroom stall where a group of white girls stood over her stall and threw paper that had been set on fire on top of her. And yet another Little Rock Nine student told of being pushed down a flight of stairs. Thumbtacks were placed on chairs, gym clothes were urinated on, there were beatings with tennis rackets. The abuse became so bad that the Little Rock Nine were prohibited from participating in any extracurricular activities because their safety could not be guaranteed. The white students were rarely disciplined for their egregious actions. The black students, on the other hand, were. When Minnie Jean Brown responded to taunting by a group of white male students by dumping her bowl of chili onto the boys, she was suspended for 6 days.
Oh my gosh.
That's
a lot.
That's a very long suspension.
Was it like boiling hot chili? Did she actually injure anyone? I doubt it.
And I mean, I don't know. This is, how many ever years ago, but I can speak for at least when I was growing up or like more modern times, like the chili's not hot.
I was just going to say, this is the U.S. public school system lunch, okay?
In fact, you'd be lucky if it was lukewarm.
Yeah.
Like it got dumped out of the can and like
maybe heated up on the stove for a little bit.
Because of room temperature. That's the only reason it's warm. Later, Brown would be suspended for the rest of the school year. In May the following year, Ernest Green would become the first black student to graduate from Little Rock Central High School. He would be the only one of the Little Rock Nine to finish his education at that school, as Governor Faubus, who was reelected the following year, closed down all of the Little Rock's high schools for an entire year. An entire year, all in an effort to keep black students out.
Your children don't need to be educated because, is them being educated besides people of color
worse than not being educated at all?
Clearly.
This is speaking of
crazy.
Outrageous, ridiculous responses. That's crazy.
Arkansas, what are you doing?
Crazy. The closure of these schools would obviously then lead to the laying off or firing of several teachers and other administrative staff, and would also lead to an even larger target being placed on black Little Rock residents as they were blamed for the closure in the first place.
Yep, blame the people that are victims in this and not the fucking dude who's shutting down your school.
The guy that's 100% responsible. Little Rock schools would not reopen desegregated until 1960. Jeez. And while I guess you can say that there was some progress there in that when the schools reopened, they were desegregated, but things remained largely the same. Any black students in attendance still faced angry mobs, abuse, and violence on a daily basis. Other than Ernest Green, the Little Rock Nine would go on to complete their education elsewhere. And most of them went on to live rather accomplished lives. Green would become Assistant Secretary of the Federal Department of Labor under Jimmy Carter. Minnie Jean Brown would also work under President Bill Clinton, as a Deputy Assistant Secretary for Workforce Diversity in the Department of the Interior. Elizabeth Eckford served in the U.S. Army, became a probation officer, and I just had to add this, she got her bachelor's degree in history. Gloria Ray was the editor-in-chief for an international computer applications journal and also worked in the Netherlands for Philips Telecommunications.
Wow.
Melba Patillo wrote 2 books and was a reporter for NBC. Carlotta Walls became the president of the Little Rock Nine Foundation. Terrence Roberts got his PhD in psychology and became the CEO of Terrence J. Roberts and Associates, a management consultant firm, and an assistant dean at the UCLA School of Welfare. Thelma Mothershed worked at a juvenile detention center, and Jefferson Thomas would also serve in the U.S. Army. All of the Little Rock Nine are still alive today, with the exception of Thomas, who passed away in 2010 from pancreatic cancer. Before Thomas's death, President Clinton awarded them all the Congressional Gold Medal, which is the highest civilian award bestowed by Congress for their huge role in the civil rights movement. And in 2009, President Barack Obama invited them all to attend his inauguration. Little Rock Central High School is still operated as a school today, as well as a National Historic Site. And now today at the Arkansas State Capitol stands this statue. We have a picture here.
Oh, it's a picture of the nine.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool statue because the thing that the artist did to me was depict their youth.
Yeah, totally.
Really well. Mm-hmm. Like almost just in their body language.
Yeah. Each of them is different. Each of them looks entirely like their own character. And I don't know. It's really cool. I have to wonder how awkward it must be to be at a school. Well, I mean, I guess it's good that they like own their history. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The school also, I didn't mention this, but the school also kind of operated as a museum. It's like an actual school.
Yeah.
While also being a historic site, while also being a museum.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's the story of the Little Rock Nine.
Wow.
Yeah. It's really sad.
What's the most upsetting to me is to hear about violence, really. The violence and like verbal abuse and towards literal children and like the hatred towards these human beings.
Yes.
Which, I mean, it's nothing new. Like, we all know the history here, but it's just hearing these stories, it just brings it a little closer to home and makes it a little more, like, personal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And I think one thing with this story that always comes back to me is we're integrating schools here. We're integrating high schools. So obviously we're talking about kids. We're not adults for the most part are not going to high school. So this movement has to happen with children. And that makes me sad that all of this weight and responsibility and hatred and vitriol was on the shoulders of children.
Yeah.
And that there isn't really anything you can do about that. It's not like you could send in adults to pave the way in these high schools and stuff.
Yeah.
It had to be kids. And that makes me really, really sad.
Yeah. And also very proud and impressed with that group of students. And to see that they went on to like do these
such amazing things.
Is really heartwarming and nice to know that people can survive through the shittiest of things.
Yeah, I think that's a good note to end on.
You can survive through the shittiest of things.
Hashtag that's a t-shirt. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Hashtag History.
We will share the pictures that we discussed on the episode to our Instagram, and all sources used to put together the episode can be found on our website at hashtaghistory-pod.com.
Subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you use, share about us with your family and friends, and then give us a rate and review.
And be sure to check us out on Instagram. We are at #history_podcast. We also have started a TikTok. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't say started a TikTok because we probably had it for over a year now.
But it's still in its infancy.
If you want to follow a rather unactive account on TikTok, you can follow us there at #history, all one word.
When we do post,
it's good.
It's good. It's worth it. And if you would like to, you can come join us over on Patreon. It's only $1 a month. That supports our books and booze supply. You also get access to some behind the scenes content. We do weekly #hangout episodes. You get an automatic 15% off all merchandise, and we mail you cards and stickers.
We sure do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
I was going to say Kansas. I was just going to skip the first letters. We'll take all of them.
Oh my God.
When the black school... I had a berry in my throat.
Yeah.
Reefer?
Reefer.
Jeez. All black. All black. Ugh, I feel like I already feel that drink.
Good. Ugh.
You're gonna have to cut out like the pauses between all my words trying to figure out what I'm saying.